I guess we can just dive into this. I have a few questions for you, but first, I don't know if you just want to go over like some of your background, like high school experience, where you came from, just all of that before I go into anything too specific.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry about that. I just got a call. Yeah, I went to Grossmont High School, born and raised in San Diego. Spent the first 18 years of my life in San Diego. Grossmont High School played football, basketball, and ran track there. Then had a pretty successful career. Only got one college football opportunity. Took it at the University of San Diego as a non-scholarship FCS school. Some things fell my way there, and I ended up starting for 4 years. The starter, my true freshman year, left. He transferred, and I got an opportunity and ran with it. Started there for 4 years. Met with a couple NFL coaches. Had a good pro day. Nothing really came of it. Then went and played ball in Japan for the last 2 years.
Right on. So my first question then is, what was the biggest thing you learned during your time, like as a quarterback in college? Because obviously, there's a lot of things you can take away from that. I'm sure it was a very, uplifting experience to be able to play with, so many talented people. So, just like, what was the main thing you take away from that experience? And then also, like, did you have like anyone in particular that you played with that really inspired you, or did you have like any coaches that were really important to you, or just anything like that? If you want to mention them, you can go ahead and just.
In terms of what was the most important for helping me grow as a quarterback, or as a person in general?
Both, to be honest. I mean, I think those are both very important things for a player. You got to be good on the field, but then you got to be good off the field too. You got to have the right mindset for everything. So, both of those are really important.
Yeah. So my football career, the way I look at it, has been kind of three different blocks: high school, college, and then professionally out in Japan. And so for the college portion, the thing I learned the most was, everyone's athletic and everyone wants to be there. The thing that separates people is, preparation, in my opinion, as a quarterback. So, in high school, I watched a couple huddle highlights of the team I was playing, and you thought I was getting ready. And then in college, you're breaking down films and blitzes and third down packages and stuff. And so that's the biggest thing for me, is being ready to adjust to the game, and not even necessarily the speed or the strength of the guys, but in terms of what college defenses are going to throw at you. Preparation was the biggest thing for me. And then, football, everyone talks about it. Football teaches you so many life lessons, discipline, teamwork, overcoming adversity. You're going to get hit in the mouth, see how you bounce back. All the generic things are true for me as well. But as far as guys who helped me out a lot, every guy you play with, you love. You look up to a ton of guys. I looked up to a running back, a couple running backs. Chris Campano, a guy I played with at USD. He was the team captain, and then Jonah Hodges was also a team captain when I was a young player at USD. They helped shape me into the player and the kind of guy I wanted to be for the team, and the teammate I wanted to be for the younger guys, like they were to me. And Coach Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, my first 3 years starting there, was a huge role model for me. Just a great guy with a great knowledge of the game. He ended up leaving. He went to coach at Michigan, but he had a huge impact on my life.
Yeah, man. Well, it definitely sounds like you had a good time and you learned a lot from that. I didn't really know that much about the University of San Diego football program until I started doing some research really recently, because you hear about, like, the main one I always think of is just San Diego State. You know what I'm saying? I think of like college football here. It's like, oh, San Diego State. Like, that's where a lot of the guys that go to the NFL come from, because obviously SDSU is like Division One, but then obviously USD is like a subdivision school, I believe. So it's sort of, I think people kind of gloss over it. And I have a few friends right now that they're looking at, like, football opportunities, and I tell them, like, you don't have to go like Division One to be successful. Like, you can do subdivision, you can do Division Two. You don't even have to get a scholarship. Like you said, like, you walked on, and you still have a really you're still really successful in what you do, and you've had a good time with it. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is after college. So how did you end up playing like football in Japan? Because I know I've only ever heard a few stories. I've heard about the X League before in Japan, but I you were the first person I ever contacted who's ever actually played in that league, and I wasn't aware that it was still even like a thing. So after college, you mentioned that you know had a few you had like your pro day and you were in contact with maybe some people from the NFL, but obviously that didn't pan out. So was Japan sort of the next option up, or was there something else, or how did that process work?
Yeah, so as soon as I played my last college game in the playoffs, um, my eyes were on the NFL first and foremost, and
Of
I worked
course.
my butt off for
Hmm.
months, trained, had my pro day in March. Thought I killed it that day. My my agent had talked to, I think 3 or 4 OCs. The Eagles quarterback coach called me personally, and he set up a meeting. So I had a meeting with the Eagles quarterback coach a week after my pro day, and so at that point I'm feeling really good. But nothing like they weren't ever talking about drafting me. It was always like we're going to sign you as a free agent, that type of thing. So I'm feeling pretty confident, and then but not necessarily like it's a shoe-in. So I had also during the time after my pro day, while I was talking to NFL teams, I had been going to CFL open tryouts. So I was doing big CFL tryouts in LA. I think I went to about 3 or 4 of those and talked to some CFL coaches. And so the day the draft comes by, I don't get drafted, and I wasn't expecting to, but I was hoping to hear a call that night about getting signed as a free agent. Nothing happened that night. And at that point, the CFL had already started camp, and was starting camp before the NFL, so I really wanted to hold out to see if I can get any NFL opportunities. Those, every day and every week that passes, your chances get slimmer and your hopes, start
Right.
to diminish and diminish.
Right.
And about a week after my pro day, right when I was meeting with that Eagles coach, a coach in Japan reached out to me and said, "Hey, we got an opportunity for you out here." And I was respectful. I said, "Hey, I want to keep playing ball no matter where it is, but I want to take my shot at the NFL." And he understood. And about a month later, he said, "Hey, how's it looking? What's going on out there?" I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a shot. I still want to play ball. Do you guys still have a spot for me? And he's like, "Yeah, let's get you on a visit." So I flew out for a weekend, did a little workout, met with the team, met with the coaches. And then about 2 weeks later, I was out, wheels up, and, just playing ball in Japan all through that. Just the coach reaching out to me was the only connection I had.
Yeah, right on. And that's what I tell people too, because like I mentioned before, I have a lot of friends that are looking to go play college ball, D1 onto the NFL, whatever. I know a lot of people that want to be there, but I tell them like there's other opportunities too. Obviously, the NFL is like the premier football league in the world, and that's where everyone wants to play. But you can go play in the CFL, and you can go play in the X League, and you can go play in all these different places, and you can still be really successful, and you can still really establish a name for yourself. I know plenty of people who went to the CFL to then go to the NFL, or they went to another league to then go to the NFL to sort of develop themselves. But then some of them didn't go to the NFL. They just stayed in those leagues, and they were still very successful in what they did, and they just had a fun time doing it. So building off that, going into my next question is just like, how does the X League work? Because I feel like a lot of people that are going to listen to this and a lot of people are going to watch this, they've probably never heard of the X League before. They probably don't even know that American football is played in Japan. Honestly, like I said before, I wasn't really aware that the X League was still like in existence. I hear about it from time to time, and I hear about they do play. Like, I know they play baseball in Asia a lot. I know they play basketball, but I've never really heard of American football over in that part of the world. So just like, how does it work? Like, is it any different than American or football in America? And then like, do you have like teammates from America as well? I mean, I assume you do, but like, what's sort of like the culture there in terms of football, I guess?
Yeah. So in the X League, you're allowed to have 2 foreigners on each side of the ball on the field at the same time. So you're allowed to have 2 defensive guys and 2 offensive guys. Most teams use that, both of those guys on Americans. I think there's one team that has an Australian and one team that has someone from Europe. So they don't technically have to be Americans, but most teams use them as Americans. And then some teams started, like my team. We have about 9 or 10 Americans, because if you go to college in Japan, you don't count for a foreigner, and if you were born in Japan, you don't count as a foreigner. So we have a couple guys who were born in Japan, moved to the States when they were young, grew up in the States, played college in the States, and then go to Japan. They don't count as a foreigner. So the American presence has really grown out there, and the American football presence has really grown in Japan. But in terms of the football, yeah, I mean it's 100% NCAA rules. So it's 1 foot in bounds. Everything's the exact same as a college. Same field, same hash marks, same numbers. Everything's the same. But yeah, I mean the biggest difference is obviously the guys on the team don't speak English. So that's the biggest obstacle. But football's a pretty universal language, so everyone knows what a post is, everyone knows what a go is, everyone knows what a slant is. So we work together on the language barrier, and it's still just playing football.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because I feel like the reason I asked that question about like is it like different rules in Japan is because like I know even in American, like in different American leagues, like off the top of my head I'm thinking of like the XFL. Like the XFL is like a bunch of different rules that just make it really weird, and it's harder to follow along. But I'm guessing that the fact that the rules from the NCAA carry over into the X League, I'm sure that helped you a lot with your transition when you went over there to play ball, because obviously you kind of were familiar with the system, and it sounds like even though that there's a language barrier between your teammates, you can still figure it out just because you all have the same passion for football. And like you said, like they still know what the plays are and they still know what all that is. So as long as you guys sort of have that burning drive and that burning passion, you can still get things done, and you don't even speak the same language, which that's remarkable. Like I think that's really people are going to overlook that, and I think a lot of people think that in these foreign leagues it's just like a bunch of American guys coming over because they didn't get the NFL opportunity. But it's kind of cool to think that there's like people in Japan and people just across the rest of the world that love the sport as much as the Americans do, which is where it sort of originated from. And I just think that's really cool. I think that the fact you're able to play football on the same team with guys that don't even speak the same language as you, and you guys are still successful doing it. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I know a lot of other people that wouldn't be able to do that, even pros. So that's pretty remarkable, man. So another thing about the X League too that I want to bring up. So like, have you had like a favorite? I'm sure you've had a favorite moment in like the X League, or a favorite like time or something like that. But what was your favorite game in the X League, and how do the games work? Like I know I feel like there's a lot of teams in the X League from the research that I did. I think there's about 50 something. So is it sort of like how many teams do you play a season, and then like how big are the venues? Like how many people turn into a game, and then just things like that. Like what's been your favorite like out of all that sort of stuff combined?
So yeah, the X League, like you said, there's a ton of teams. There are about 50 or 60, like you said, but the top division has 8. And so and then I believe the second division has 16, and so my team's in the top division, and it's like it works like I've just heard this, so I don't know. I'm not a big international soccer guy, but it works like those English Premier Soccer leagues where the bottom team gets relegated down, and the top team in the second division gets relegated up. So the league is changing every year. The top division and the second division is changing every year, but. So there's 8 in the top team. So we played a 7-game regular season, and then 4 teams make the playoffs, and then it's just single elimination, just quarterfinals and the finals. And my first year we were out there, we made it to the finals. My team made it to the finals for the first time in about 5 years. And then this year we lost. This year was a crazy season because of COVID. So we only ended up playing 2 games, but we lost the game to go to the championship. But my favorite. My favorite individual game was the semifinals last year. We ended up winning 24-14, but it was against a good rival and a good team, and that's what you used the word passion a lot earlier when you were describing how football's universal and how we're able to communicate even with the language barrier. And I think that a lot of people think about football and that everyone has that passion, but it's really not. And as far as when I talked about preparation separating people, the passion does too, because I was very lucky to be on the teams I've been on. I went to a middle of the pack public high school, and so it was just guys who just loved playing ball, wanted to be with their friends. We weren't a powerhouse. Mm-hmm. None of us were going D1. We just loved ball. We loved being out there throwing it around. And then, you go to a non-scholarship FCS school, you got guys who are paying to play football. So you got guys who love the game. We're not getting free backpacks. We're not having guys do our homework for us. we're going to classes, we're taking tests, so we're out there because we love ball. And then again in Japan, these guys are working full-time jobs and they're playing football. They're working 50, 60 hours a week, and then they're getting their training in and they're working hard. So being on 3 teams that just absolutely love the game has just affected me in like so many ways. And so winning that quarterfinal game, you see that passion because that game took us to the finals, and some of the guys hadn't been there in 4 years. Some of the younger guys hadn't been there before, and we're all just like so happy and so ecstatic, and we're crying and everyone's pumped up, and so that was my best memory. But in terms of the games, a random home game throughout a regular season home game will probably have about anywhere from like 2,000 to 8,000 people, depending on the team we play. So if we get a big team, we might get around 5, 6, 7, 8. But the championship is crazy. It's in the Tokyo Dome. It's on a turf baseball field.
Wow.
And then they do the they obviously mark out a football field, but it's in a dome, and that one gets about 30,000 people, and that was one of the coolest environments I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And going back to what you said earlier about like, there's a passion all these guys have. I think it means a lot more, like you said, like when, you're not playing in the NFL, or you're not playing on a scholarship, or you're overseas or something, because like, there's a show I watched on Netflix called Last Chance U. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it follows, JUCO college players, junior college, which is like sort of like I don't really know how to describe it. It's sort of like the dirty, banged up part of football where it's like, everything's rough and you got to fight for it yourself. And, the last season, I think, which might have been the final season, was at Laney College up in Oakland. And Cali JUCO is especially hard because you have guys that are sleeping in their cars and, just trying to make ends meet, working they're working full-time jobs while playing football. I mean, that's not easy. And that just goes to show how much more passionate some of these people are, or how much more dedicated they really can be. Because if you have like a family to take care of, and you have bills to pay, and you're still doing football on the side, I mean, it really means a lot. And I think the emotion definitely shows more in events like that, where you're not getting paid millions of dollars to do it. You're not doing it in front of 50,000 people. It's only a smaller crowd. Although I will say, 5,000 people at a game in a foreign country, that's still pretty good turnout. I'll say I thought it might be a few hundred people, but the fact that you say it's a few thousand each game, of course, depending on the team, I definitely think that's still pretty impactful. And again, it goes back to my point from at the beginning, where it's like, there's people who are passionate about playing the game, and there's people that are willing to make those sacrifices, but then there's also just so many people around the world that will come to watch. The fact that there's thousands of people in Japan, of all places, that are going to come and watch a football game, a sport that's not even from their country, I think that goes to say a lot, because football it's not as universal as some other sports like baseball or basketball, especially American football or soccer, stuff like that. It definitely has a global fan base, but I feel like it's still a lot less when you compare it to some other sports. I mean, soccer, basketball, all the things I just mentioned. So I definitely think that, the impact is a lot more. And from what you've described to me, like, there's just so many crazy things I didn't even realize up until now, like the language barrier, and you're playing so far away from home, and it's just, I mean, that's got to be surreal. But I think all of those guys have that passion for the game, and they're gonna go out there and they're gonna go bust their ass off in a game. So I think that's really important, and it's really good. It's really good that you're able to have that experience, and you're able to still have fun and still see a group of guys that are willing to do that when they're not making NFL money, when they didn't go to a Division I school in America, when they weren't riding a scholarship, etc., etc. So my last question after all that is just it's a more broad one. It's just like, what is your biggest hope or goal for football moving forward? And what would be like your message to people that, are playing overseas right now in a sport that, maybe doesn't get like the attention, or, what I mean? I guess just like, what do you want for yourself moving forward in football, but then what do you want for the people, especially in Japan too?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, football has done so much for me, and football has brought me to places I never would have even imagined going to without it. And for myself personally, I want football to provide happiness for as long as my body allows it to. That's the thing. I used to really want to play in the NFL, but now it's I just love playing football.
Mm-hmm.
and I love the relationships. So personally, I want football to keep providing happiness and keep presenting me with opportunities and friendships and lifelong relationships. And then in terms of a longer timeline, I want to give back and teach kids and young men, the values and that football can bring, so I want to get into coaching and help show people what football can do for you and for your family and for your friends and for your relationships. And then in terms of football, talking to anyone younger than me, just you got to find out, me and my buddies at USD would talk about this a lot because, not a lot of us get a shot in the NFL, but it's do you want to play football or do you want to play in the NFL? You know what I mean? So you got a lot of guys who just want to tell people that they made it to the NFL. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to show off and buy things and do nice stuff, and that's fine if that's your goal. But if you want to play ball, you know what I mean? So don't be discouraged by going overseas. Don't be discouraged by going to Japan or Europe or anywhere you go. Just keep playing football because that's all that matters. And especially like you were saying, the high school kids, if you don't go D1, don't give up. If you love football, keep playing wherever it is. You're gonna make relationships. You're gonna make friendships. Keep playing because football's a very, very unique sport. Because once you hang up the pads, you're not putting them back on. Because you could play pickup basketball. You could play pickup baseball. You can go out and play tennis. You could play golf till you're 80. But once you put the pads up, you will never play another 11-on-11 full padded regulation football game the rest of your life. And so just acknowledge that. Don't take anything for granted, and then just keep working.
Yeah, man, that's definitely good advice, and I think a lot of people will take away from that. And there's always that. I feel like some people, like if they don't make it to the NFL, they're like, oh well, my football, my dream is over. I'm never gonna play football ever again, and that's it. And I'm just gonna go home, and now I'm gonna work a regular job, or I'll just go into coaching, or I'll just do something like that. But I think sometimes people just overlook those opportunities because they're seeking money and they're seeking the attention. Like you said, they just want to give back to people and show people, hey, look at me, I got my NFL jersey, I got my checks, But it's more than that. I think if you really love the game, like you will, take those opportunities to go play in Japan. You will take those opportunities to go play in another country because you really care about it and you just want to play. There's a big difference between, wanting the show and then wanting to play. I think that's the main takeaway. But that's all the questions I have. I don't know if you want to add on anything else, or that's really it for me on my end.
Yeah, man, it was great. The only thing I would say is, football's a young sport in terms of globally, but it is growing. Tap into X League games. They got live streams. Tap into any type of European league you can watch, and just there's good ball players everywhere. I got a bunch of friends out in Japan who are. If they were born in America, who knows? They might have been playing at big D1 colleges. They might have been doing things, but they're born in Japan, so hopefully they can still get a shot. You know what I mean? So just broaden what you're watching and expand your views and tap into some X League games for sure. Panasonic Impulse.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that now because I'm really interested in the X League after everything that you said. I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing you play. Hopefully next year, assuming or. Maybe this year, depending on how the Corona situation, pans out. I don't know what it's like over in Japan right now, and obviously I know, you're back here in the States right now. But hopefully we just gotta hope for the best. I think.
No doubt.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming on. Thank you for the time and everything. This was a good conversation, man. I learned a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'll say that much.
No doubt. Appreciate it so much. Thank you for reaching out to me and having me on. I love talking ball.